Our guest today is Mark Schaefer, and Mark is going to talk to us about return on influence. Mark teaches marketing at Rutgers University. He's authored 2 books, and his blog, Business Grow, is among the top sites in the world. The themes he's going to talk about today is return on influence, how your online influence is being leveraged in new ways by brands, and is Klout for real? Does it really matter? So let's welcome Mark to the show.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mark. Glad to have you on the show. We're really excited to have you here and especially share some of the ideas in your new book. Why don't we start off by just define for our audience what the heck is return on influence?
Yeah, it's something I just totally made up. Actually, it's so very interesting, Jeff. I started becoming really fascinated by this topic about a year and a half ago. Whenever I would write a blog post about Klout, I would get these 2 reactions. One, people hated it. I mean, really hated it. They hate the idea of being public way. On the other hand, you had these brands that were loving it and starting to incorporate these scores, their traditional marketing programs. So I became fascinated in it, and I thought this might be a good idea for a book. And as I studied it, this whole new world really opened to me about really what is influence these days. How is it different on the social web or on the internet versus what we would think about power and influence in the real world? And I interviewed about 70 different experts for this book, did a lot of research, and what I found out was really pretty amazing and very eye-opening. So the first part of the book really explores this idea is what is influence today on the internet and how is it different than we traditionally think about it. What's the same? What's one of the big differences, of course, is content, where in the real world we don't go around pushing content at people, but that's really powerful on the internet. So I explore that. And then the second part of the book looks at Klout and other companies who are doing these social scoring models. And this has been very controversial, and they've come under a lot of attack. But as I explored this and looked at it really with academic research and a scientific view of this, I think they're on to something. I think they are able to measure not all influence, but certain types of influence. And most exciting, this is something that's available to all of us now. We all have the ability to publish, to have a voice, to have influence.
Interesting, Mark. That's an interesting topic to talk about. On earlier episodes of Mad Marketing TV, we've had content marketing experts like Joe Paluzzi of the Content Marketing Institute. We've had Jim Burns of Abatage, and they talked about creating great content. But my question is how does content match with online influence? How do the 2 tie together?
Well, the foundation of really any success on the social web and the way to exert your influence, you need 2 things. Content, yes, is part of it, but the content doesn't matter unless it moves. So you need to have an engaged network. So the idea is the ability to either create or aggregate great content and move it through an engaged network. That's really the foundation of what's creating power and influence on the web today.
That's interesting, your comment about how not just create content, but it has to move. Because that's one of the things I've observed in a lot of companies. I'll set a resource page on their website and have content there, but it doesn't do any good unless people are reading it, people are consuming it, it's moving around, and I think you raise a good point. But as you said, Mark, you interviewed over 70 experts to write this book. So here we have Mark's book, which when we go back, I'll ask him when it's coming out and where we get it, but I think it's not his first book, and I think this is going to be a great book and one I look forward to reviewing. And I'd like everyone to check out. So let's go back to Mark now. Tell us about the book. When is it coming out and where can people get it?
Well, it's being published by McGraw-Hill, and so it should be available in all formats all around the world. It's going to be available for sale right now on Amazon, and it's officially launching at South by Southwest in early March.
Had a lot of authors on the show, and I'm always amazed at what it takes to create a great book. So let's go back to the 70 people you interviewed. For the marketers watching this show, what lessons can they learn from using influence in their marketing programs?
Well, I think one of the highlights of the book is the case studies. As I said, the first part of the book really looks at what's different now, and specifically something like social proof. In the real world, social proof might be you see someone and they're dressed like a doctor, and so automatically you associate certain qualities with that person because they look like a doctor. But still, you have the opportunity in the real world to talk to people, to get to know people, to get other information to make your opinion. We don't have that luxury all the time on the social web. Sometimes all we have is social proof. We may have the number of Twitter followers they have, or the number of fans they have on a Facebook page, or even a Klout score. So something like social proof has a very special role on the social web. So I think that's one of the things that marketers will take away from this book is what's different now. The other thing that's going to be very interesting and a great lesson, I think, is to see what is the science behind the social scoring. And I think it'll really impress everybody what's really going on behind things, because we only see the tip of the iceberg. What brands are seeing and what brands are using, they're getting a lot more information than what we can ever get to make decisions and use it in their marketing programs. And then finally, I've got more than a dozen case studies, a variety of case studies. I had exclusive access to Klout and their customers, and I interviewed many of their customers, also some of I interviewed the chairman and founder of Peer Index and some of their customers, and created some really exciting case studies. I think it'll blow people away how people are using Klout scores and integrating this into their traditional marketing programs, their traditional public relations programs, how it's even being integrated into agencies, public relations, and nonprofits. And I think people will read these case studies and go, wow, I need to understand more about this.
Certainly sounds like you're blazing some new ground here, Mark, because I've seen the controversy over Klout, and some people think it's a fabrication and it doesn't mean anything. But I think you make a good point. If you actually research it and find out the data behind it and how it actually works, it's a pretty interesting thing. So let's try to summarize our discussion here. And what are the top 3 or 4 things that you think are takeaways that come out of your book?
Well, Jeff, you mentioned the controversy, and I don't want to sugarcoat this. It is not a fail-safe system. It is not a flawless system, and it's a balanced book. I devote an entire chapter about problems with the system, not just technological problems, but sociological problems. The issue that this could create a social media caste system of haves and have-nots. So, there are problems, and they're addressed in the book. I think that should be one takeaway. I think another important takeaway is to see the best practices. I was very, very fortunate to be able to interview one of the leading proponents of Klout. I guess he works for a big public relations agency in New York City and is actually applying Klout and the perks that Klout applies to their high influence. The big takeaway is how this can be leveraged by individuals. What are the best practices for individuals to understand what this is all about. What is the impact of this? How is this going to affect our lives as this increasingly goes mainstream? Potentially our careers. Klout scores are starting to show up in interviews and on resumes, and that might be distasteful, but it's happening. So we have to understand that, and we have to deal with it. So what does that mean? How do you increase your own Klout score in a meaningful way? And that's a big takeaway from the book as well.
Really interesting stuff, Mark, and I look forward to chatting with you in our after-party show where we'll get into more detail on this. But for now, tell us, how do people learn about you and your company and what your company does?
Well, on the web, I'm at www.businessesgrow.com, and I call it that because nobody can spell Schaefer. So it's businessesgrow.com. You can find my website there. You can also find my blog. I would love for people to come and enjoy my blog and join the wonderful people in my blog community there. You can see here I'm also on Twitter, and I'm active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+. You can find all of that on my website.
Thanks, Mark. You've been a great guest on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
Till the next time, we look forward to seeing you on Mad Marketing TV.